Do you want to have that on? Okay. Jaden's coming on. 3. Jennifer Edmondson. Guys, we're just waiting for a few more people to join. We'll be right with you, okay?
Seeing your leads, whether or not they've been pre-approved or figuring out how to introduce that conversation. Now is the time to be on Slack because this man right here, guess what? He's an expert of pre-approvals. So we're going to talk to him for a couple minutes, and we are available right now on phtmeetings.com. I want to see as many people as possible log on. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna post that in Slack.
Yeah, a lot of people say they struggle with that. Yeah. Pretty high attended meeting training.
Hi, Jaden. Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Joe, who happens to be right next to me. Hi, Trevor. I got permission from Liz this morning to be obnoxious, so it's on. Just wait. I'm going to start coming up with
I'm on
memes
my
and
way
all
to
sorts
a
of random weird
walkthrough.
videos and stuff. Whatever I have to do to start grabbing people's attention. So I appreciate all of you taking the time to come on this morning. Joshua. Good morning, Joshua.
Well, good
How are
morning.
you today?
Oh, just living the dream.
We're going to walk out of this meeting as an expert in asking for pre-approvals.
Yeah, I am.
And truth.
Yeah, I am.
I'm telling you right now, the 6, now 1, 2, 3, 4, technically 5 most successful agents in the company for Q4 are right here in this room because they are the ones taking the time to show up and learn how to do this if they haven't already, and maybe even just walk away with one tip that makes it easier to introduce this conversation. So we're going to get going in a minute. I'm just waiting for people to respond to my little video I posted on Slack. Step it up. Good morning, Miss Casanova.
Hello, how are you?
I am happy to see you. Just make sure my volume's up on this. Bet you it's not. I can't hear anybody because I've had it on mute. How about that? Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you hear me say good
Yeah,
morning
we
to you?
can. Yeah,
Have you been
I'm on
hearing?
my way to an inspection. I don't know if
But-
I can come tonight though, because I already had stuff booked, but we'll see. I may be able to pop in for a little bit.
Switch your schedule.
I'm working on that.
I talked to Parker about the call nights last night, and he wants me to do at least a couple of them a month. And realistically, if we could do one a week, that would be ideal. So just kind of fluctuating between Wednesday night and Thursday night. We'll always have something to talk about. Joe will be here as often as he can. There's Mr. Dennis right there to jump in on conversations as well. So
Cool. Will they be at the same time? Because I usually like schedule about a week out, but if I know that, you know, they're roughly either one of those, I can figure it out, you know, like if this week is, let's say Thursday, so next week will probably be Wednesday, then I can kind of plan around that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We will plan to send out a calendar for the entire month, either today or tomorrow, so that you guys can plan ahead.
Perfect. That would be spectacular.
Because at the end of the day, as we're coming into Q4 and then ultimately into winter, and I'm not sure where rates are today. I got to look it up. Matt, where are rates today? Same as yesterday, right? High, 7.70.
7.5-ish.
I don't want a
Yeah.
single agent on the team to say, oh, what to do. I don't have any business. I don't know how to introduce a conversation about pre-approval. You know, I'm not getting leads. I'm not making calls. I have 90,000 plus leads in a database right now that I want to make sure get out to everybody in the team. Like they're there, they're ripe for the calling. They've planted themselves as seeds by coming in through Zillow and other sites, clicking on a button, wanting to engage with someone about a property search, property that they've asked to go see. Maybe it is just the beginning of their search and they're getting a feel for where they want to move. Maybe it ultimately is, you know, they have a house to sell and they're just looking at properties to give them an idea of updates they need to make on their own. The bottom line is those are real valid leads and they're there for everybody to take advantage of. And the more that we kind of time block and focus on, you know, some time that you can put into your schedule during the 2 most successful days of the week to make calls. Statistically, Wednesday and Thursday night, you have the highest opportunity for pickup and not just answering the phone, but actually engaging in a meaningful conversation with someone about the process of buying and selling a house. It's like hardcore data tracked on multiple sites. And Thursday night, statistically, you have the highest percentage of people who will turn into clients and actually purchase with you. So when we are creating call nights on Wednesday and Thursday, it's done with all of that data kind of as the foundation, right? We want to take the time when we know we're going to be the most successful. So if you can please show up tonight, that would be amazing. And I love to see everybody, especially since Parker's the one who's paying for pizza. So, okay, I'm going to grab my coffee and I'm going to let Joe take over. So you come up here and you can get on this for just a second. Here's Miss Sarah Church. We're going to let her in. Good morning, Colin.
Awesome. So love to see everybody here on this chain here on Zoom today. We're just about to get started. And as an overview, we'll be talking just language for bringing up pre-approval, as well as the objections that you're going to get when you bring it up. And so Matt and Jilayna will both be speaking to this. Matt, do you want to come right over here? I want to see if we can get all 3 of us in this frame together.
Where would you like?
Right here.
What's in here? Sorry. Okay.
We can just jump in and move the screen.
Hey, it's going to be conversation style, everybody. Scoot over, Matt. You can get closer.
Here.
Your wife is going to be just fine.
So Jilayna, at this point,
My energy is scaring people today. Sorry about that.
at this point, before we even brought a lender into the situation, Jilayna, I want to pretend that I'm your client. You're on first showing with me, and the showing is going well. So you're gonna bring up pre-approval. What's the type of language that you're gonna use to bring it up?
So first of all, the number one tip that I always give to people, and this is tried and true based on my experience, is I always assume that they're pre-approved. I don't ever assume that they're not. And so it will depend on the personality style of the person I'm meeting with. But I might ask, so are you paying cash for the property?
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay. So how much have you been pre-approved for?
I really don't know.
Oh, you haven't had a chance to get pre-approved yet? That's not a problem. It's one of the first steps you want to take in the process of purchasing a house. And I actually have a great lender that I'd like to connect you with. It's a great place to start a conversation and just see how those numbers will work out for you. Because at the end of the day, I don't want to get you excited about a house that doesn't fit your budget. So
Sure, and well, if we find the right home, then I think I'd get pre-approved.
okay, so how long are you thinking you want it to be before you end up settled in a house?
I mean, we're probably about three months.
3 months out?
Mhm.
Okay, well, I'll let you know that if you're 3 months out, it means we need to be seriously looking for a property right now. And realistically, if we're looking at somewhere between 30 to 60 days, with the inventory shortage on the market, I would want to start actively searching with you right away.
Okay.
And so I know that if we need to be out there looking at homes right now, one of the most critical things we can do is establish a budget for you to make sure that we are making the most effective use of our time and
Mhm.
only looking at properties that are going to work for your budget.
Well, I'm a little bit worried about just getting a hard credit pull when I'm not necessarily positive I'm gonna buy a home
Okay, sure.
at this point.
I understand. I don't want you to worry about that. Not all lenders need to do a hard credit pull. What I want to do is I want to have you introduced to a lender so you can start the conversation. And they're going to talk a little bit with you about the type of documentation that's required. They'll talk a little bit about how they calculate incomes and come up with a budget. And at the end of the day, they're going to know whether it's smart for you to move forward or not. I trust the people that I get to partner with. That's the reason that I partner with them, because it's really important to me that you have a great experience in real estate. And I want to ensure that that happens. How about we give my friend Matt a call real quick, and then we'll just start a conversation and see where that goes.
Sounds good. So you'll actually call Matt on the showing there?
I will call whoever I need to call. Sometimes I call Colin. I don't know if I've ever called you before directly. I might have with one of them. Not off a showing? Okay. If you're in a position to do that and you put them on the spot, it's really hard for people to say no when you pull your phone out. If you think about it, this is part of why we want to connect in person with people at a showing as much as possible, because I don't remember the exact data. I want to say it's 90% of all buyers will work with the first agent they meet in person. You gotta let Austin in on that. Yeah, sorry.
You said 80 or 90?
90% of all people will work with, I believe it's 90%, will work with all of the people that they meet in person for the first time. So try that. We're having technical difficulties. Sorry.
Wow.
And the same can be true if someone doesn't have a lender. At the end of the day, you have to find out what is their motivation for selling. There are key factors there. If a timeline is involved, use that timeline to your advantage. If they're not sure they want to move, ask why they're not sure. Are the finances a factor? Okay, well, this is why getting pre-approved or speaking with a lender is going to help you make that decision. Ultimately, if the numbers don't work for you, you don't want to be spending your time out there looking at homes. So let's start by getting you connected with a lender who can take a look at your financial situation and see whether or not those numbers work for you. So I always put it back to what their need is. And I don't want agents out there wasting time either. There's ways to introduce this softly. So this is kind of just a thrown into the mix conversation. Another thing I might say is, let's role play. You really like this house that we just looked at. Okay.
Jilayna, I love this home. It's great.
Okay. So has your lender given you a payment scenario on this property yet?
We haven't. It's been a couple of years since we've spoken to anyone about it. At the time, our credit wasn't good enough, and we've worked on it over the last couple of years. But we haven't spoken with anyone in about 3 years.
Okay. Well, I've worked with enough people to know that when you are really excited about a house and you find the one, it's important to move forward before someone else can come in and take it. And we're still seeing that happen with interest rates being a little bit higher. So what I'd love to do is introduce you to one of my lending partners. Let's give Matt a call, and you can just start that conversation with him and see, how those numbers work right now with current interest rates and what we can do to get you this house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
Honestly, the way you bring that up, the way you phrase that, it would be really uncomfortable for me to say no.
Right.
In that situation.
And that's what I want. I want to create an environment where they understand I'm working in their best interest. It doesn't make sense to continue looking for houses until we move forward. Or if this were a situation where the notes maybe said that, or I had checked ahead of time, there was a lot of activity on a property and you said you liked it, I'm going to say, how would you feel if this house slips through your fingers? If you know that this is the right property for you, let's do everything we can to put you in a position to make an offer.
Right. And what if I don't love the home? And what if it's a property that I'm not thrilled about? How do you still go into pre-approval?
Absolutely.
And what do you do to bring it up when I say, yeah, I don't think this is the one. We actually hate it.
Sure.
I would say, well, what price range are you looking at?
Probably 350 to 400.
Okay, and is that based on how much you want your monthly payment to be, or have you already been pre-approved for that amount?
You know, we did a mortgage calculator online, and it's pretty on par with what we can afford for a monthly payment.
Sure. Okay, well, I appreciate your letting me know that. You know, one thing I think is a huge advantage is checking in with the lender just to have them kind of take a look at all of your documentation and have a conversation with you and make sure that this price range actually works. And there's a few reasons for that. I have worked with so many people who think that just based on what their pay stubs say, they can afford a certain amount. And maybe they have in their mind that they only can look in a budget of 325 to 350, when the reality is they can qualify for more and they might better get a home that actually fits their needs better than if they were just looking at properties priced under 350.
Sure.
And the flip side of that is that sometimes people think they can afford up to 350, and the reality is they can't afford up to, can only afford up to 300. I really do not want to get you excited about a house that does not fit your budget.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense.
I tell you what, why don't we make a quick call to my friend Matt? I'll just do a brief introduction and you guys can set up a phone call to go over those numbers and see what works best for you. We'll take it from there.
So what I love about you bringing up the call right there on the spot is that you're taking every bit of control into your own hands, rather than just setting up a group text and hoping that they pick up the phone when Matt or Colin calls, or giving them, or even worse, giving them Matt's number and telling them to call Matt. It's a situation where you can get control of it and you can make sure this happens, because people will procrastinate things. And speaking firsthand as someone who set appointments for people, it's always best if I can literally get a live transfer to the agent, and it just leads to success. It keeps the momentum flowing, and it's a great client experience. So I love that you do that.
Thank you.
Can I jump in there?
Yeah.
So I've done that too. When I did that, one of my ones last spring that closed with Colin, they were not thrilled. They had a pre-approval. They were not thrilled with the communication style of their previous lender. So while we were in the one, or what we thought was going to be the one, I just went ahead while they were in another room and FaceTime Colin and got them on the phone and did it that way. And they were shocked that we could actually get somebody real-time FaceTime in the moment. So they ended up closing on the next one, the next house we ended up going to that day with Colin. So a lot of times they don't believe that we could actually get somebody that quick. So that's a huge asset to our team in having that ability.
Agreed, and I really appreciate you bringing up that point, Jen, because I think so often, even if we do introduce the conversation, if someone says they're already pre-approved, you don't know where to take it from there. And I think what you just brought up is a good lead-in, because maybe they're saying they're pre-approved and they're not happy with their lender, but maybe they just don't think that they can get pre-approved with multiple lenders, or they haven't considered doing a price comparison on fees. So I will always ask follow-up questions. If you were to say, yep, we already have a pre-approval, I would say, okay, have they sent you a breakdown of what their fees are right now?
I don't think so.
Okay, I would encourage you to look at that, but I also want to recommend getting a second opinion. I mean, if you think about it, if you were going to the doctor about a serious health situation, something that affected your health, you would likely get a second opinion. And it's the same in lending. Like when it comes to buying a house, your financial health is at stake. And so I would love for you to connect with my lending partner just to get a second opinion, make sure that it's the best program and options for you, and that those fees are, something that's affordable. There's always a chance that one of my lending partners could do better. And if not, they're going to be honest with you and let you know. Let's give Matt a call.
Matt, do you have anything to jump in on that? What do you see being most successful as far as getting connected with you?
Yeah, I mean, I think what Jilayna is saying is absolutely probably the best way. I think it's important for people to have that conversation with us over the phone, so that way they're not just, the application can be scary. Hey, they want my birthday, they want my social security number, they want all this stuff. If they can have a conversation with us, especially quickly like that, it shows that we're available as well. But it also shows that we're a real person, we're local. We're not just taking your information and spitting out a number. Our main goal, as yours is going to be education. So we're going to ask those questions, what's most important to them, and make sure that, whatever questions they ask, that we're going to have that answered, respond to give them confidence, make them comfortable moving forward.
I also love what Jen does with even jumping on FaceTime there.
Yep.
Making a face-to-face interaction rather than just on the other side of the phone. So I think that's a great strategy, and I can see why it leads to your success.
So you're gonna have to be dressing really nice.
I was just gonna say.
Ongoing, if we're gonna do FaceTime.
I had a little panic, like, okay, when I'm home, I better make sure I get my hair done and, okay, good to know, Jen.
And something I want to just highlight is you don't have to pressure anybody about this, right? So I mean, in truth, I'm talking a little fast this morning. I got thrown on an early morning conference call while I was driving here, so I haven't had a chance to kind of get into my rhythm of how I would typically talk with a client. But I always speak enthusiastically, and I always come from a point of care for my client. I tell my client, you know, at the end of the day, I care about your money. It's not my money, but I treat your money like it's my money. And it's really important to me to know that you're working with an expert lender who's familiar with the local market and that you're getting the best deal possible on fees. Seeing what's happening with some people out there. And, you know, those fees ultimately can be the difference between getting a house and not getting a house. If this is our goal, let's make sure that this whole process is smooth. I'd love for you to connect with my partner just so I can know that you're being taken care of.
I love it.
So it's going to vary depending on the type of personality that you're working with. If it's someone who seems a little more quiet and they're all about numbers, or they seem like maybe they're more like a high C on the disc profile, they want lots of details, I will sell them on Colin, and I will say, and this worked actually, Colin did a loan for me with one of my clients where he was a very high C person, risk management. And I said, you're a numbers guy. I want to connect you with the president of my company or of my lending partner company. And then that way, you know, you're talking to the person at the top, you know, that the information that you're going to get is, you know, coming directly from someone who does this every single day and who's an expert in the industry. And, you know, I want you to chat with him. That way you're going to be comfortable going forward with whatever those numbers look like. And he did, I'm talking about Spencer Collins. So Colin did a really good job taking care of that client who in truth drove me absolutely
nuts.
I have introduced Matt to a few clients. We haven't done a deal yet, but I've introduced you to a few clients where you've been very consistent with talking with the people and the follow-up, and I appreciate that so much. So if it's someone who is set on needing a face-to-face appointment, I would invite them to the office, and I would say, you know what, Colin or Matt has an office right down the hallway from me. Let's set up a time to come meet in person. I'll be there with you, and I don't need to know any of your personal information. I'm happy to step out of the room at that time, but this way you're making a face-to-face introduction with someone who actually lives and works right here in Minnesota and is familiar with what's happening in the market on a level that some of these other brokers out there just aren't. So you've got to kind of customize your approach to whatever agent or whatever the personality type is and timeline is and needs are of the people that you're talking to.
I will jump in there too, like, you know, face to face is awesome. We definitely are available for it. Some people, depending on their lifestyle, don't have that time to drive to Edina, come to the office. I did a Zoom call last night, still in person or still face to face. But was aware of their timing. They had a small child. I mean, I think I've done probably average 3-4 Zooms a week with new clients just to go over that situation. That way they can see my face, they know who I am. And again, just all about education. Dealing a lot with first-time homebuyers, and even with second-time home. I met with a couple that was 65, 70 years old, but it's been 30 years since they've been through this process, which has changed, you know, crazy amounts since the last time they purchased a home. So again, it's all about education for us, making sure that they feel comfortable. But yeah, I mean, Zoom is always available. Both Colin and I can be in the office as well. But yeah, both options work.
I was just checking the question, so
Yeah, I was seeing that.
I was choking on my coffee, so I just left. So thank you. Sorry about that. Josh, you had asked about whether there's a number of homes that will show. I will tell you that yeah, I will show. I don't have a specific number. What I can tell you is that I will always introduce pre-approval or process for purchasing on the first meeting every single time. I do a recap at the end of my showing, asking how the buyer feels about the property.
if there are any features that really stood out. I always know whether or not they are first-time homebuyers, what kind of information would be helpful. I set a plan at the end, and part of that plan is it always has to include pre-approval. Now, there is no guarantee that they're gonna follow up with one of the guys, right? Or it might be a situation where they say, hey, we don't have time to do the conference today, but I would like an introduction. And I've done plenty of introductions that way after the fact, right? But I'm gonna continue to kind of press that issue, and in my follow-up, whether it's the next day for showings, which I either try to go from the first showing right on to another showing if there's something available in the area, or set an appointment for the next day so that I'm staying in front of the lead. If there is a point where if they are resistant to getting pre-approved, they don't have a defined timeline, then they are really just kind of wasting your time, right? And we have to be able to say, okay, you know, I'm working with several clients right now, and just with the nature of the market, it's really important for you to make sure that you can buy at this price range. So as soon as you have a pre-approval, even if it's not with one of the people I recommended, let me know and we can pick up our search again. Because I just don't want to waste your time, and I don't want to spend my time out there too if I know that I'm showing you properties that might not be a fit with your budget. So I will approach it from the perspective of, one of the worst things that I could do as an agent is get you excited about a house that you cannot afford. I don't work that way. And because I won't do it for other people, I can't do that for you. Buying a house is something that should be a great experience for you, and it's really important to me that you're taken care of. And I don't want to get you excited about a house that doesn't end up working out because it's not in your budget. So it's really important to me that we have those numbers defined. And I want to let you know that, you know, there are federal protections in place to protect your credit so that you can get pre-approvals from multiple lenders if you need to. Typically, a pre-approval lasts for 90 days. So just because we're getting you pre-approved now doesn't mean that you have to make a purchase immediately. It's still going to be valid for a little bit of time. And in the event we don't find the right house for you in those 90 days, typically a lender will look at your credit score or just do a brief view of your credit to be able to reissue that pre-approval. It's not a hard pull every single time. And if that's not true, you should tell me, because that's the line I use with people, but it works.
Yeah, so I mean, if it does pass, whether it's 90 or 120 days, depending on the lender, what they require, if they do a hard pull the initial time, and it's past that 120 days, 90 days, whatever it is, they will need to do another hard pull.
So how does that affect their credit number?
I mean, it's going to be anywhere from, I think the average is anywhere from like 1 to 7 points.
Okay. So we're not talking about a drastic dip in their credit in the event they need to. But I would then say, how could we proactively use that 90-day time frame to say, hey, you know, your pre-approval is going to expire in this time. So,
well, again, so it depends on we have the conversation of, you know, what is your timeline? How soon do you want to be in this house? And if it is that, well, it could be now, but potentially it's going to be 3 to 4 months because we're not truly in the need right now. You know, we don't need to move right now. That's when we'll have that conversation. Well, let's just make sure you are set and ready to go. You know your numbers, you know you can afford it. That's when we will introduce the soft pull. It's going to be just as accurate, but it's not going to affect your credit. It's not going to subject you to any of the phone calls that you're going to get. It's just going to give us a very detailed outline of what you're going to be approved for, and then I can send you the numbers exactly where we stand today of what the rate is, what your monthly payment's going to be, and what the final closing costs are going to be as well. We can go through that line by line so you understand every single charge that is on there, and then you feel comfortable moving forward purchasing your home.
So I love the way that he phrased that, and here's how I will use that going forward with clients. If someone ever says to me, well, I don't want a hard pull on my credit right now if I'm not sure I'm going to buy within the next few months or whatever, I would say, okay, well, that's not true. A lender doesn't have to do that. And that's why I want you to talk with one of my lending partners, because if other lenders are trying to force you to do that, they're not telling you the truth. I know that my lenders could do a soft pull on your credit and make sure that they go through all of those numbers with you line by line to ensure that you're making an informed decision. And if the numbers work and it's the right time to move forward, then we're in a position to do that.
But I do follow up with, you know, that's how we're going to start this process. As soon as you're ready to start offering on properties, we will want to do a hard credit pull before you put any offers in, just to make sure that nothing has changed. And then in order to run our automated underwriting system to confirm everything's good to go, we do need to have a hard credit pull to do that. So again, we're going to make sure, and if there is any question marks in that, we don't want you guys wasting your time showing either. So we will make sure that whatever the situation is, that they are good to go. Because again, we're going to protect your time and as well as the buyers. We don't want to waste their time if they're not truly approved.
Awesome.
But I mean, from that credit report, we're going to be able to see, where the problem areas could be and how they can address those as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned to me that some lenders will only do hard pulls.
Correct.
And you mentioned two other things within that other lenders will often do that Flex doesn't. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't.
In that case, we'll go a different direction.
Well, I mean, a lot of lenders with pre-approval letters, they'll just, the client will fill out the application. They will, some lenders will not even ask for pay stubs or asset statements or anything like that. They'll just say, okay, we trust your application. You're approved up to this amount at this percentage, and they just send them a letter without any quotes, any numbers, anything like that. Like, hey, you're approved, and the rate's going to be 6.75. But yeah, that also includes 2 points that they don't tell you about. 2 points on a loan, that's going to be, potentially $8,000 to $15,000. With our pre-approvals, I know I do, and I'm pretty sure Colin does as well. I follow up with a quote rate sheet with, again, all the closing costs, every escrow charge that it might be. We use estimated numbers. I mean, we walk through and make sure they're comfortable with them. Depending on what type of program it is, we talk about buying rate down as well, what that would look like, and honestly, where they stand, where they're comfortable spending money at. And again, we go through how many months it would take to pay off the permanent rate buy down. Again, we want them to have as much information so when they purchase that house, when they're going through underwriting, when they're closing, they're happy and they had the knowledge the entire time. So that way, once they're done closing, they're extremely happy with both yourself, ourselves, and you're going to get referrals.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
And then, sometimes in conversation, it's going to come up where they will say that they're, yeah, that's something they plan to take care of. They're just not ready to do it yet. Or maybe they'll say they're just not, comfortable with the process or something going forward. I will ask, if they've had a bad experience in the past, or I will ask, do you know all of what goes into the process of getting pre-approved? And what questions do you have about that? And use that as we don't really know the process. Maybe first-time home buyers are like, well, we know we needed a loan, but we don't really know what that process looks like. And I'll say, okay, this is why it's really important for me to have you talk to someone who's going to take great care of you and give you all of the information you need to be comfortable with that decision moving forward. There's documentation that they're going to need to collect and an application that you'll fill out. But I want you to have a conversation with someone first so that what's going into that process and you don't feel overwhelmed just having an application put in front of you. So some kind of soft introduction that way. Or if you want to chime in.
I do want to say one thing that just popped in my mind too, is that some lenders now are charging for applications with a credit pull. Some of the credit inquiries have gone up charges for lenders. So they are charging the borrower up front for that credit pull. There's no charge for us.
Great.
Up front. Once they close, they will pay for that credit report, that credit pull. But up front, let's just say, we pull it, they don't get approved, nothing, it doesn't harm them at all. They don't have to pay for anything, they don't come asking for anything. If the application's free, the credit pull is free, whether it's soft or hard pull. So yeah, you can also mention that because some lenders are now charging for credit pulls right up front.
Mm-hmm.
Another objection that I've had, and I really like that too, because if someone says that they are already pre-approved and they don't want to pay additional fees to have their credit pulled, I will say, oh, you don't have to worry about that. My lending partners don't charge an upfront fee for their credit report. Sometimes you're going to get, objections of, well, we don't want to go through the process of getting approved until we find the right house. As an agent, you have to be able to have the confidence in yourself and your service to be direct with the people you're working with and tell them that it's not the right process. And what does that look like? So if I had a client say to me, if you said to me, we're not going to go, we're not going to take it to that, level until we pick the right house. I'm going to say to you, okay, I strongly recommend against that. And here's why. In my experience as an agent,
If you wait until find the house, there is someone else who's going to come along that has already gone through the process, is comfortable with the numbers, knows that they can afford this house, and they're going to make an offer,
Mhm.
and you're going to miss out on the house of your dreams. I've seen it happen so many times in real estate, and I do not want that to happen to you.
Well, how long will it take me to get pre-approved?
Well, if I can connect you with one of my lending partners, either Matt or Colin tonight, and I could probably have you pre-approved by the end of the evening. It depends on, the conversation you have with them and any documentation they might need to review.
And you think if we found the right home and we were to go through that process, somebody would put an offer in the next couple hours?
It depends on it will depend on the price range that you're in, but in this price range, yes, we are still seeing multiple offers. And as interest rates have gone up, there is more competition for homes in this price range. And I've shown properties that are in multiple offers, and I've also worked with clients who don't want to get pre-approved until it's too late.
Mhm.
The vast majority of buyers out there are already talking to a lender. They know that they can afford the house. They have a pre-approval letter to submit with a purchase agreement, and that's going to put the seller at ease. Remember, if you decide that this is the house for you and we make an offer, it's with the goal of getting that offer accepted. And so I want us to put our best foot forward and show that you've already gone through the pre-approval process and that the sellers can be confident that you are able to afford this home.
I love it. I love it.
We got another person.
But I will say too, we do have the ability, again, depending on the time of day and all that stuff, to get an approval done very quickly. It is going to be dependent on what their, how willing they are to submit documents as well. I know we've gone over this multiple times in our trainings and the meetings that income calculation is much different than most people think. So if they can't get us those documents, it's very hard to give them pre-approval. So if they can get us all those documents, like we have many people who just say, yep, here's everything and everything's good to go. We have others who say, here's the application, we're done. Oh, you want those actual documents uploaded? You actually wanted those when that asked you to do that? So it does take a little bit longer depending on their ability to get those pay stubs.
Mhm.
I will tell you that this is my plea to you to be showing up for the mortgage training on Wednesdays at noon. It is a small window of time that we're asking for you to be present to talk with our lenders. And there's a purpose in that. How many of you want to be out there driving around with gas at $3.50 plus a gallon, going to showings a half an hour away, when we're getting leads and that are actually coming through that want showings? How many of you want to do that if that sale is not going to go somewhere? We don't want to do that. Like, I care about your time. I care about your gas money. I care about your ability to be working with leads that are serious and are qualified. And so learning some of the language about lending is critical to introducing that conversation. And, before I came to Pemberton Homes, I was 7 years, I was an agent. I was on an extremely high producing team for 3 years, and I never had access to a lender the way that I do here at Pemberton Homes. If you are not extremely familiar with what that process looks like, or some of the factors that go into qualifying buyers, if you show up at the mortgage training on Wednesday with Colin and Matt, you are getting world-class education on what it takes to get your clients qualified. And remember that there are how many agents out there right now that their businesses are starving and they're scrambling for deals. If you go in to a showing with someone and they have questions about the lending process and you already know the answer, that makes you the knowledge broker. You become the expert that immediately they are comfortable working with because they feel that you are going to be able to take care of them. And I'm going to quote Sarah Church here, right? The first time that I watched Sarah do a training on open houses, she had a catchphrase she used, which is, people want to be served, not sold. And that stuck with me. And I love it, Sarah. Thank you for that. I'm going to use that all the time. And that's the truth. When it comes to buying a house, people don't want to just be pushed into a transaction. And they want to make sure that they're working with someone who has their best interest at heart, that's not going to force them to purchase that's not right for them. We're coming out of COVID where, so many people were I just got to get a house. It doesn't matter what house it is. And now there's buyer remorse out there for that. And so,
if you're coming in to these meetings with your clients, whether you're finding them in an open house, whether it's a team lead that you're meeting for the first time at a property, whether it is someone that you've cold called and you've set up a buyer consultation for, knowing the basic language of mortgage, which is like the sister or cousin to real estate, right? Like family relationship here. We're dependent on each other to make things work to go forward. You're able to speak on a different level with that person. You're able to extend a level of care and concern about their needs and what it really is going to take for them to accomplish their goal. So it is so important that you have that training. It's a foundation to building a house, right? Like our education in real estate, we want to know how these processes work. We want to know how to have those conversations with people because we're building a foundation with the person that we're working with. And ultimately, our goal is to get them into a house. And the more training you have and the more understanding you have of the circumstances in the market right now, the better equipped you're going to be to service that person. And if they go into an open house after they've met with you, why would they work with someone else if that other person is just trying to push them into a house or doesn't know how to answer their questions? I am passionate about real estate education for this reason. So get your calendars out on your phone right now if you can, and make sure that you have Wednesday at noon blocked off on your calendar. It is a very small window of time to gain a great deal of knowledge on how to better service your clients. And the more knowledge you have in real estate, the easier it's going to be to continue to build those sales. And guess what? It's not just the one transaction, it's the person who comes after. Because when you serve someone really well, and Sarah, I'm sure you would agree with this, you serve someone really well and they have a fantastic experience with you, you are the only realtor they are going to want to work with. And when you have a partnership in place like we have with Flex, you're able to provide a different level of service than just using random lenders out there or having our clients go to random lenders. If you think about going out to a restaurant, sorry, I hope I'm not rambling, but you go to a restaurant, you know, 5-star dining experience, right? Like if you've ever been to Manny's or something like that, you're taken care of. There are multiple people who have their roles to make sure the plates are clean. There's a little guy people who come by and they scrape the table for breadcrumbs, right? You order a custom-made drink, it's right there in the bar for you. You don't go sit down and say, okay, well, I'd like you to go to, you know, Bob's Bakery to get me the dessert 2 miles down the road, or send your server off, you know, to Willie's Bar around the corner or something like that to get you a martini. It is a full, comprehensive, one-stop shop experience, and that is what guarantees dynamite service. And it doesn't have to be any different in real estate. So when you're using our partnerships, we're able to have direct communication with Matt, who's in the office all the time, with Colin, who's always been available for me on the phone, to ensure that we have awesome service for our client, and it will lead to referrals, and a referral-based business is what is going to make you the most money as you continue on in your real estate career. That's the goal for everybody, right? To get to a referral-based business. So please take some of these things that I'm talking about seriously. I hope next week on Wednesday, I will see all of you on the mortgage training at 10 o'clock. And then I don't know what else you have planned for this training today, but if there are questions anyone has to ask, this is a good time.
If you want first open it up to the channel, if there are any objections that you encounter specifically, or if there's a scenario that you run into on a regular basis, I would love for you to bring it up now. If not, I want to bring it back to a little bit to the basics and just get very, very down to an action step.
Sure.
What is the most simple, what's the most simple script for bringing up pre-approval to clients that's successful? And can we keep that like to a couple sentences that I'm hoping that every single agent on this channel will be able to walk away having that memorized, so that when they're in their next showing, they can say it word for word for a script that's gonna have the most success.
Sure. So I would say my number one go-to is this one. At the end of a showing or during a showing, you'll know when the right time is to introduce that conversation. I will say, has your lender issued you a payment scenario on this property yet, so that you know what the breakdown is for monthly payment?
So has your lender issued you a payment scenario
On this property,
on this, well,
or for this property, yes.
for this property, that would break down the monthly payment.
Yep, and you don't even have to take it that far if you don't want. You can just say, has your lender issued you a payment scenario for this property? Your responses are always going to be, I don't have a lender. I have a lender and I know I'm pre-approved for this dollar amount. Or, no, what's a payment scenario? Those are the three most typical responses I get. I would say 99% of the time. And from one of those three responses, I know how to move forward. If they tell me they already have a lender and they know they're pre-approved, excellent. Who are you working with? Can I have a copy of your pre-approval?
Mhm.
What if they told you you're paying for fees? I want to make sure that you know all the fees that are going into this loan, because I've seen where lenders are introducing really high fees right now, and that can make or break a purchase agreement sometimes. I'd love for you to get a second opinion. And so I would take that conversation that direction. What is a payment scenario?
Mhm.
If I get that response, a payment scenario would be telling you what the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance are going to be on this property. I want to make sure that that payment fits in with, the type of homes you're looking for.
Mhm.
Oh, well, we know we want our house payment to be somewhere around, $2,000 a month. Okay, what's that based on? Is that just on your current budget and your income right now, or are you paying rent that's similar? So it opens up the next conversation opportunity to get more details about what their situation is and how you can meet their needs. And I would say, okay, what I'd love to do is connect you with one of my lending partners who's going to be able to tell you what a property like this will cost every month, and then you can take it from there. So it's always about filling a need. And if they are insistent on who they're working with, we already have a pre-approval. We've worked with this person in the past. We're really comfortable. Perfect. What's that person's name and number so I can reach out to them and get a copy of your pre-approval letter and just have one on hand in case you're ready to move forward with offers. The more direct you are with your response and not giving them a yes or no, like you're not giving them an option, so to speak, in the words that you're using, the more likely it is that they're going to follow through with what it is that you are wanting to do. So be direct in your approach, and you can do it in a kind and caring way that is all about servicing the client.
Yeah, and I think it's important that the buyer knows and is comfortable with the loan estimate or quote that they've gotten. Because the last thing you want is, let's write an offer, let's get it accepted, and then they get that loan estimate and say, oh, this is way too much. I don't feel comfortable with this. Then you have to cancel during the inspection and kind of come up with a reason why, and look bad in front of that other listing agent as well. So making sure that lender is sending out that information to them is important.
Mhm.
Give me 1 second. I'm gonna go grab a buyer guide real quick, okay?
Love it.
All right, hold on just a second. Sorry, guys.
Anybody have any questions about, who has or has not worked with Flex? Questions or concerns about what we do, how we operate? I think most of us have. We're done. Yeah.
Can I jump in on one trick that I do when they're a little bit hesitant? I'll say, okay, great, and I'll schedule a second appointment. But after that second appointment, I'll say, okay, great, I've got a little homework for you, and let's get you in touch with the lender so that we can make sure that we're on the right track. We don't want to be shopping for a Mercedes if we can only purchase a Kia. So we want to make sure. And then I will actually give them a date. A lot of people are driven by that kind of, being led in that way. And then I'll remind them, I'll check in with them on, if I give it to them on Monday, I'll check in with them on Wednesday. Hey, just checking in. How did that conversation go? And then a lot of times they kind of show it to themselves when then they'll, they're always looking on other places like Realtor and Zillow and stuff, places that aren't the most up to date. And they'll send me a message. Hey, I'd love to go see this weekend. And those are my favorite ones when they're actually under contract, so that you could be like, oh, bummer, that one's under contract. Oh gosh, that one's under contract too. Hey, did you have that conversation about your pre-approval yet? Because that's when they actually realize, like, wait a minute, we're behind the 8 ball. We need to get our butt together. And we have
The only thing I would add to the end of that, and I've done that similar approach, is I have more success instead of asking them if they've had that conversation, saying, hey, I checked in with Matt and he said he hasn't heard from you yet. Do you have time? Do you have time today to connect with him on the phone? And
and I'll
kind of
send them
on the spot.
an intro. Yep. Yep, and I'll send them, like, I'll follow up with that, like with an email or, you know, hey, just checking it, you know, and I'll CC the lender and stuff. And then that way they're kind of like, oh God, we do have to get this done, you know, and then they realize it. And then when they want to schedule more appointments, I just kind of put it on them that as soon as the homework's done, we can go ahead and schedule. And then 9 out of 10 of them do it.
Excellent. I want to introduce this real quick. I just want to talk about the buyer's guide for just a second. Okay. So in kind of designing this, I will let you know, I bring a hard copy to every single appointment I have. There is all sorts of data out there about the imprinting that happens when you put something into another person's hand, something of value. So even if I'm using like an electronic presentation, like High Note or something like that, I like giving people something that they can touch, something tangible that's in their hand. If we're having a conversation about pre-approval at a showing, I'm going to open my folder up. I'm going to take this buyer's guide out and I'm going to turn to the page and just say, hey, this is Matt and Colin. These are my lending partners. I love that you have a face to go with the name. This is, you know, this is Matt. This is Colin. You know what they look like. Born and raised here in Minnesota, and they're both experts in the industry. These are my lending partners that I'm going to connect you with, and it brings them to life in a different way. And that's why having their pictures in this guide was so important to me, because just like the face-to-face meeting is important, so, for us, it's equally the same for a lender, in my opinion. Otherwise, you're just someone behind a computer screen that has no emotional involvement with the client, right? And Jen, you had talked about, you know, doing a Zoom or something like that, or a FaceTime. I love that idea, but if you're not in a position to do that, you can always just open the guide right to this page on knowing your numbers and show who Matt and Colin are, what their contact information is, and it just puts people at ease a little bit because they know who to expect on the other line. And if they don't have a FaceTime with Colin or Matt, they still have in their mind who it is that they're talking to. And it just puts people at ease a little bit more. So don't be afraid to use your guides. I mean, there's a timeline process in here. And if you read these, it tells you right in the beginning, what are the steps in purchasing a home, needs versus wants, right? Determining what you're looking for, and then pre-approval. And then the timeline here, what's step 1? Pre-approval. And then the next page, it's on knowing your numbers and why that's important. So if you just follow the guide and use kind of this along with that introduction of, you know, have you gotten a payment scenario on this property yet? Or have you decided if you're going to pay cash for your next house, or are you looking to finance it? Something that simple. It's a very non-intrusive, I want to get you pre-approved. It isn't, are you pre-approved for a loan yet? It's a different level of language that just opens up conversation and tells you where to direct it from that point forward.
I love it. And just come back to that one question that you said that every person on this Zoom should walk away with. It's, has your lender issued you a payment scenario for this property that would show what your monthly payment would look like?
Yeah, and I would even shorten that, and I would just say, you know, has your lender given you a pre-approval, or excuse me, has your lender given you a payment scenario on this property yet? Mm-hmm. And I say yet, implying like maybe they should have gotten it already. And it's just a change in verbiage. I've used so many different ways to introduce the conversation, but that is the one that I have the most success with, because payment scenario makes a person think, what does that mean? Do I know what that means? Are we talking just about the price of the house? What exactly is that? Do they mean interest rates? And just the way that that's phrased opens up conversation. And I would tell you, I told you what the 3 most common responses I get are, but even people who have purchased a house before will say, what is a payment scenario? And that's literally what I mean by that, is just a breakdown of what the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance are, right? That's what I mean. What would the monthly payment be on that property? And that's how I can introduce kind of like that next level of the conversation. So.
I'm going to text that out to every person who's here in attendance, just so that you have that as a resource. Recommend memorizing it, and then on your next showing, you'll have it in your tool belt ready to go. Thanks for coming on today, guys.
Hi everyone. Reach out if you have questions, okay?
Thank you.